Fairy tale adaptations are very common, and I'd argue one of the most common fairy tales to adapt is Cinderella. I don't have, data to back that up, but it sounds right, doesn't it? If you're getting your PhD in folklore studies, free thesis idea. Most adapted fairy tale. I think part of the magic of Cinderella that makes it easy to adapt is that the base elements can fit into a lot of different settings. Modern, old-timey, magic, no magic, different cultures. It's very versatile. And one unique adaptation of Cinderella is Ella Enchanted, a book by Gail Carson Levine and a 2004 movie starring Anne Hathaway. Also, can we get a little commotion for the outfit? You can't really see it. Can you see it? Is it good? My filming setup isn't really good for full body shots. When I told my friend I was doing a video on Ella Enchanted, she brought up the green dress from the original book cover, but that sounded, 1, less recognizable than the movie, and 2, less easy to DIY. Though to be fair, I am quite good at DIY projects. I mean, obviously. And if you want to do some DIY, you might be interested in the sponsor of today's video, Craftsy. Craftsy is your online resource for all things creative. They have over 2,000 classes in over 20 creative skills like sewing, knitting, quilting, crochet, art, and baking. The classes have step-by-step instructions from experts and even have additional downloadable resources. So I'm working on a secret sewing project for a secret video. Shh, don't worry about it. And I can operate a sewing machine. I have one, but I wouldn't say I can do it skillfully or consistently. So I really liked the class Sew Ready, Machine Basics by Amy Allen. She shows you how to use your machine, and there's also a bonus PDF of info, which I appreciated. If you're interested in learning with Craftsy, click my link in the description. The first 1,000 people to click the link will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49. You can't get anything for $1.49 these days. And that's only valid for new members. Thank you, Craftsy. And now let's talk about Ella Enchanted. Ella Enchanted started as a book from Gail Carson Levine. We've talked about her before on this channel. She wrote the first Disney Fairies book and established a lot of different things about the universe. We stan. Gail had been writing for 9 years and kept getting rejection letters.
I was 39 when I started writing, and it took me 9 years to get published, which I'm sure you know.
But a publisher picked up Ella Enchanted, and it became her first novel in 1997. It then won a Newbery Honor Award in 1998, which is a big deal for children's literature.
They call you on the phone, the whole committee. It's a committee of librarians from the American Library Association. It's something they do out of love because they have to read a zillion books in the year. And they're all happy. They're so happy to be doing it. And I was completely astonished. And they were, "Oh, we thought we'd have to call you on your job." And I said, "No, I'm a full-time writer now." And they cheered. And so it was amazing.
Here's an early copy of Ella Enchanted, and you can see that Newbery Honor Medal on the front. The book itself is a loose Cinderella retelling, and now we get to the backstory part that I don't like. Gail has said that she was in a writing class and decided to do a version of Cinderella.
So Ella, I was taking writing classes because I'm not a solitary learner, and writing is a solitary occupation, and that's not entirely a good fit for me. So anyway, I started this new fables class, and alas, the teacher has retired. But Margaret, known as Bunny Gable, taught at the new school for 30 years. When I took it, I didn't have an ongoing project, and I had just read Beauty by Robin McKinley, and I loved it. And I wondered if I could adapt a fairy tale. And then I started casting around for fairy tales, and Cinderella seemed to me very big in the canon.
But she says that she didn't understand or like Cinderella as a character. She didn't understand why Cinderella always did what she was told and why she was so simperingly sweet to her stepfamily. So that's why Gail decided that Ella would be cursed with obedience, as a justification as to why she did what she was told.
When I started to think more about it, I didn't understand why she's so kind to that stepfamily when they're only mean to her. And she seemed saccharine to me. And so I got stuck and I couldn't go forward until I thought of the curse. So when I thought of the curse, then she's doing it only because she has to. And she's not sweet at all, particularly.
It's hard to write a story about somebody you don't understand and you don't like. And so I had to give her that curse, because then she's not really disgustingly sweet, because she has to do what she's told.
Which, Gail, it's because she's in an abusive household. She does what she's told because she has to, and she's nice to them because she's scared of them. She doesn't have the power to change her circumstances, so she's like doing her best and trying to be a nice person. I don't know, that's just such an odd way to view the Cinderella story. One of my first videos was reading all the Disney Fairies books. And when I was researching for that video, I watched some interviews with Gail Carson Levine. And I saw her say that, and I was like, that's weird. Filing that away for later. And now it's later, so I'm telling you about it. Whatever. Her motivations and inspiration for the book don't super matter. What matters is the book itself. Ella Enchanted takes place in a magical world. There's magic and magical creatures, and everybody knows about it. And one of the things in this world is fairies. So when Ella is born, a fairy named Lucinda comes to bless her. The problem is that Lucinda is kind of an awful fairy. She gives terrible gifts. And so Lucinda shows up and baby Ella is crying because she's a baby. And to get her to stop crying, Lucinda blesses Ella with obedience. So anything anyone tells her to do, Ella has to do it. Such as, in this instance, stop crying. Ella's mother and their cook Mandy are there, and they try to explain to Lucinda, like, hey, that sucks, take that away. But Lucinda doesn't get that that's a terrible gift. And they're also kind of afraid of Lucinda. She has a temper, she turns people into squirrels. So they let Lucinda leave without taking the gift back. Ella's father is away on a trading expedition, and we're meant to understand that he's often away on business. Ella first becomes aware of the curse on her 5th birthday. Mandy, the cook, cuts her a piece of birthday cake and tells her to eat, which is an order, so Ella starts eating and she can't stop eating. And she's like eating cake like crazy until her mom realizes what's going on and she tells her to stop. So the way the curse works is it has to be an order. It has to be phrased like an order. So Ella would have to obey, go put your shoes on, but not, could you go put your shoes on? Or, I wish you'd get ready so we can leave. It has to be, like, direct. And Ella can delay following the order, but not for very long. It causes her, like, physical pain. Like, she gets nauseous and dizzy and her head starts to hurt. So she can't avoid the orders for very long. Apparently, over the years, Ella's mother and Mandy have asked Lucinda to take the curse away. Lucinda refuses because she thinks it's a great gift. And only the fairy who gave you the gift can take it away. So there's no other way for this curse to be removed. We learn that Ella is pretty rebellious. She tries to avoid orders and, like, find loopholes in the wording. And when she's not given orders, she's pretty stubborn and rebellious because she has to do what she's told the rest of the time. Then, when Ella is 8 years old, she's hanging out with a servant's daughter named Pamela. And she tells Pamela about the curse, and so Pamela, of course, starts ordering Ella around. She's like, let's race to that gate, and I order you to lose. And Ella's like, then I just won't race you. And Pamela's like, well, then I order you to race and I order you to lose. And it goes like that for an afternoon until Ella punches her in the face. So Ella's mother finds Pamela's family a new job working for a different family far away. And Ella's mom orders her to never tell anyone about the curse, because if people know about it, then they can take advantage of her. Then we cut to when Ella is almost 15, and this is when the timeline proper of our story starts. Ella and her mother both get sick. And so Mandy, the cook, makes a curative soup with unicorn hairs in it. And both Ella and her mother are like, ugh, that's gross. But Mandy orders Ella to eat it. I sipped my soup with the hairs in it because Mandy had said to, even though I grimaced at the soup and at Mandy's retreating back. But Ella's mother fishes the unicorn hairs out of the soup. She doesn't want to eat them. And so Ella has eaten the unicorn hairs and her mother has not. So then the next day, Ella has gotten better and her mother has gotten worse. And her mother's at the point where she can't eat or drink anything, and she's feverish and hallucinating. So Ella's all freaked out, so she goes to make a wish for her mother to get better. She goes to an abandoned castle. This used to be the king's castle, but then he built a new castle, and so now this castle is abandoned, but it's occasionally used for special occasions. Sure, all right. And this castle has these special candle trees where the trees have been forced to grow like candelabras with wire. So she wishes on one of these trees for her mother to get better, and she bargains that she'll be good, not just obedient. I didn't bargain for mother's life because I didn't believe she was in danger of dying. And so her mother does die of this illness. It's interesting thematically that obedience is a part of her mother's death. Because basically the theme of this book is that obedience and having to do what you're told is a bad thing, right? The importance of free will. But we do have this example where Ella's mother dies because she doesn't follow an order. Ella lives and her mother dies. I'm going to interpret this thematically as like, free will is important, but sometimes you should do what you're told. Sometimes the people who are telling you to do things have your best interests at heart. Which I guess makes sense because this is a children's book. Children are going to be reading it. Obviously, parents and guardians and adults are going to tell them to do things. And sometimes doing those things is important. But it's just very interesting in a book about obedience to have obedience be tied to her mother's death. So then we cut to the funeral, and Ella is crying very loudly because her mother is dead. And her father is there, and he's embarrassed by her and her loud crying. So he sends her outside. And so she goes out to a weeping willow at a graveyard. Eventually she stops crying and she noticed that at the weeping willow is Prince Charmant. He is described as 2 years older than her, taller, with tawny curls and swarthy skin. He says that he goes by Char and that he knew Ella's mother. And he liked her because she was very funny, apparently. And he's like, I know about you too, because my cook talks to your cook at the market. And so we're like, well, I guess he talks to his cook. I guess that's a good sign. So they bond a little bit, and then he walks her back to her father. And then they're going home, and Ella's father says that he's happy that all of the important people came to the funeral. And he's like, the prince was nice to you. And Ella's like, yeah, he really liked mother. And her father says, your mother was beautiful. His voice was regretful. I'm sorry she's dead. So then they have to receive guests at the house who are paying respects. And we meet Dame Olga and her daughters Hattie and Olive. They're described as plump and chubby, and Hattie and Olive sort of animalistically eat all of the refreshments, and they're sort of unpleasant to Ella. The fact that they're fat and gluttonous is, I think, supposed to be coding that they're evil. This book is from 1997. Mandy the cook is also described as plump in a not super nice way. But I guess we're not saying that all evil people are fat. But it is an interesting, consistent thing in this book that comes up like multiple times. Ella has to spend time with Hattie and Olive as they're like eating the refreshments. Hattie and Olive are sort of assessing the house, trying to figure out how wealthy she is, like how many windows and fireplaces there are. And they seem to really like that her father is rich. As Ella is sitting with them, she's sort of zoning out, looking at a throw rug on the floor. And the illustrations in this throw rug start to move. And so later, when everyone's gone, Ella asks Mandy, the cook, like, hey, what was up with that throw rug? And Mandy's like, oh, it's just like a little fairy joke. And we get this funny conversation where Ella's trying to get information out of Mandy, and Mandy is, like, trying to avoid answering. Ella's like, how do you know it's a fairy joke? Did my mom's fairy godmother give it to her? Do you know who her fairy godmother is? And Mandy's finally like, it's me. Your fairy godmother's me. Now taste this soup. And Ella's like, you can't be a fairy. You didn't save mother. And Mandy's like, I tried. She didn't eat the unicorn hairs. What? Like, I did my best. And we find out that Mandy is immortal and she's been the fairy godmother for her mother and her grandmother. And so Ella's mother's line are friends of the fairies, and they all have small feet because fairies have small feet. Because this is a Cinderella story, and Cinderella has small feet. And Ella quite meanly is like, she couldn't be a fairy. Fairies were thin and young and beautiful. Mandy was as tall as a fairy was supposed to be, but who'd ever heard of a fairy with frizzy gray hair and 2 chins? And Ella's like, prove it to me. And Mandy's like, prove what? And Ella's like, prove that you're a fairy. And Mandy's like, oh, that again. It's like, yes, that's what we're talking about, Mandy. And Mandy's like, I don't do big magic. Fairies aren't supposed to do big magic. The only fairy stupid enough to do flashy magic is Lucinda, who's an idiot. They're doing dishes during this conversation, and Ella accidentally drops a plate because she's quite clumsy. And Mandy magics the pieces of the plate into the trash. And she's like, that's kind of the level of magic we're working with here. Then Ella's father wants to see her. He shows her a piece of pottery that he got from the elves. It's very impressive. It's like animated and magical in some way. And he's going to sell it, and he's going to try and pass it off as a genuine Agulin, I think is how you say it, who's like a famous elvish potter. He asks Ella about Dame Olga and her daughters, and Ella's like, they weren't great, but I guess they meant well. And her dad laughs. He's like, no, they didn't. Hattie is unpleasant and conniving like her mother, and Olive is a simpleton. But they are rich. And her father's like, now that your mother is dead, I'm going to have to either send you to finishing school or get you a governess. Ella does not want to go to finishing school. She wants a governess because she doesn't want to, leave the house and leave Mandy. But then at dinner, because Ella is clumsy, she, makes a mess and breaks a crystal goblet or whatever. And her father definitively decides that she's going to finishing school. Ella is super upset about this, so Mandy brings her tonic. I feel like I never got a great idea as to what this tonic is. I think it's just, some sort of magical fairy curative thing. It just, makes her feel a little bit better. I don't know. And Mandy also brings a book of fairy tales and her mother's necklace. This was another costume piece I got, but it doesn't really look good with the cape. And she never wears it with the cape, so, whatever. I just wanted you to appreciate that I have the necklace now. The next day, Ella goes to the Royal Menagerie. It's a magical creature zoo that I guess, the royal family owns. She's looking at a centaur, and I guess we're saying that the centaur does not have human intelligence. It's basically a horse, which I feel like would be unsettling if it's a centaur and it has, a human half. And then she sees that Prince Char is there, also looking at the centaurs, and so they feed the centaur an apple together. Which, with a centaur, wouldn't that be, just, giving an apple to, a person? I don't know. It's weird. I don't like it. At the menagerie, there's also a parrot, and this parrot speaks gnomic, the language of the gnomes. I don't think it speaks it. It just, you know how parrots repeat things, so it's just repeating words in gnomic. Also at the Royal Menagerie are some ogres. Ogres have the power of persuasion. They can speak ogreese and convince you to do things, and they can also sense your secrets. It's almost like siren song, you listen to them and you want to do what you're told, which is kind of the inverse of Ella, right? My question is, why do we have an ogre exhibit at the zoo? They seem too dangerous for that. Then we see a little toddler gnome who's been separated from his mom, and the ogres are trying to lure him to their, zoo exhibit hut so that they can eat him. Char rescues the gnome, and then Ella's like, hand the kid to me, because she thinks that she'll be able to calm him down. But then once she's holding the gnome, the ogres are like, ha! Ella, come here! Because they can sense that she follows orders. So they don't even need to use their persuasion. And Ella is, obeying, carrying this kid and walking over to the ogres. And then Char is like, stop! What the hell are you doing? And she's like, well, I don't know, sorry. Because she can't explain why she was walking to them when she wasn't even compelled. Then she'd have to explain the curse. And so now Char is concerned that the ogres have found a new way of compelling people. But now we need to reunite this gnome child with his family. Ella is able to get the gnome to follow them by repeating one of the gnomic phrases that the parrot said. She doesn't know what it is that she's saying, but she's like, well, it's gnomic, so maybe it'll work. I don't know. They're able to reunite the toddler and his mom, and the mom is impressed that Ella spoke gnomic. And Ella's like, I said this to him. What does it mean? And it's basically a greeting. I feel like it would have been funny if instead it was like, do you want a treat? Because I feel like that's something you would say to a parrot, but would also be exciting for a child. The kid thinks you're going to take him to get ice cream, and really you're just saying nonsense words you copied from a parrot. But no, she was basically just saying, hello and good morning. Also, gnomes can kind of read the future. So she's like, can you see anything in my future? And the gnome is like, not really. There are 3 bad people who you should try and avoid. And it's like, thanks, that wasn't helpful, but whatever. Then Ella says goodbye to Char, and Char promises to get her a centaur, as a pet. which I guess that's like getting someone a pony or like a horse. I mean, this is old-timey times, so people ride horses. So I guess a horse wouldn't be that weird because he's the prince and has a lot of money. But giving someone a centaur, it's just the whole centaur thing is weird to me. So then Ella's dad sends her to finishing school with Hattie and Olive, and they're all going to take a carriage ride together to finishing school. During the carriage ride, Hattie sees Ella's mom's necklace, and she asks Ella for it, and Ella says no, and then she phrases it like a demand, and so Ella has to give it over. And then Olive is like, no, give it to me. And so Ella takes it from Hattie to give it to Olive, and there's this whole back and forth, and Hattie basically realizes something weird is going on. I think Ella does whatever you tell her to do. Then Hattie falls asleep. Olive also wants something. She's not very smart, but she likes money. She knows that she wants to be rich. So Ella gives her a coin, and then Olive also falls asleep. While they're both asleep, Ella looks at the book of fairy tales that Mandy gave her. And the book shows her what Mandy is doing. It's like a little window. It also shows her Char and her father, and a map of the land, which I believe is called Curia. After it shows her all that, it does actually have fairy tales in it, so she reads The Shoemaker and the Elves. And then Hattie wakes up, and she's like, what's that book? Why is it so interesting? Show it to me. But when Hattie looks at the book, it shows her the life cycle of the centaur tick and gnomish silver mining in hazardous terrain. Like, it shows her, like, boring things. For the rest of the journey to finishing school, Hattie is ordering Ella around. A lot of, like, lady-in-waiting stuff. Like, take off my shoes. But Ella is stubborn and trying to fight back, so she does stuff like throw the shoes out the window. And so Hattie gets increasingly cruel to her. Like, Hattie doesn't let Ella eat. At mealtimes, Hattie's like, don't eat that. Then, on one of the days, ogres come across the carriage. And the ogres are saying to them, like, ooh, don't you want to come out? And Ella has the peace of mind to be like, everybody yell so that you can't hear them. So they're able to escape the ogres. Then they get to finishing school, and they're sent right to an embroidery lesson. Ella doesn't know how to embroider at all, but this nice girl kind of helps her. Her name is Arita, and she's from the kingdom of Eortha. Then Ella tries to speak some Eorthan to her. Her accent is good, but she only knows a few words. And so Arita tries to teach her some Eorthan. Then the sewing teacher comes in, and she's mad that Ella has only done 3 messy stitches, and Ella is sent to bed without supper, keeping in mind that for the past 3 days she hasn't been allowed to eat anything. That night, Arita sneaks her some food, and we find out that the other girls make fun of Arita for her accent. In the night, Ella checks her book, and a letter from Mandy appears, so the book can also show letters that people have sent. This one, Mandy specifically wrote for Ella so that it would show up in the book. But we find out later that the book can also show just other letters. Mandy says that she misses Ella, and that Prince Char brought a centaur to the house. And Mandy was like, we can't keep that here. And so Char is taking care of a centaur for Ella. While she's at finishing school, Ella has to follow all of these orders from all these different teachers, and so she learns how to become a proper young lady by sort of following their instructions, begrudgingly. The only teacher who she likes is the writing mistress, who gives her a book of exotic languages, and so Ella starts to learn some ogreese. Ella is still disobeying as much as she can, and I liked this quote, "It was a tiresome game, but I had to play it or feel a complete puppet." Then one night, Ella is able to sneak a truth serum plant to Hattie. And so she asks Hattie, what would make you stop giving me orders? She answered in a flat voice, if you stopped obeying them. What else would stop you? I asked quickly. Nothing, she thought. My death. Then Ella asks, why do you hate me? And Hattie's like, you never admired me. And Ella's like, do you admire me? And Hattie's like, yes, you're pretty and brave. And that's kind of all Ella's able to ask before it wears off. Meanwhile, Ella has become besties with Arita. She tells Arita everything except the curse. Ella tells Arita about her mother passing away, and Arita sings her an Eorthan mourning song. The Eorthans are a culture of singers, I guess. Then Hattie tells Ella, you shouldn't be friends with lower orders like that Eorthan girl. And Ella's like, I can pick my own friends. And of course, Hattie orders Ella to stop being friends with Arita. And Ella tries to brainstorm ways around this order. She and Arita can't just keep being friends in secret because that would still be being friends. She can't tell Arita about the curse. I feel like Ella could just tell Arita Hattie wants us to stop being friends because Hattie is racist against Aorthans, and then Arita could give her a contradictory order that they should keep being friends. That's what I would do. But for now, Ella does nothing. She just sort of avoids Arita. Then we read some more letters in the book. There's a letter from Dame Olga to her daughters. And from this letter, Ella realizes that both Hattie and Dame Olga wear wigs. Olive doesn't wear a wig, which we've pointed out before that Olive has sort of thin and limp hair compared to her mother and sister. And it turns out that was through the magic of wigs. There's also a letter from Char to his father. And from that, we learn that Char has started military service, reviewing border troops. And there's also a letter from Ella's father to his bailiff. He says that he tried to trade some things with the elves, but they weren't super helpful. And so now he's going to a giant's wedding. And he mentions that fairies will probably be there because they love weddings and births. And Ella's like, oh my god, so that means Lucinda might be there. I can go there and ask her to take back the curse. So that night, she escapes from finishing school to try and go to this giant's wedding. And before she leaves, she snatches Hattie's wig off of her head. She goes to like a bakery or something to get some supplies and get directions from the baker. And he's like, it'll take this long by carriage. And she's like, how long will it take by foot? And he's like, by foot? So that's a bad omen. After like 6 days of wandering in the forest, she finally runs into the elves. And she's like, oh, hi, I think you traded with my father? And they're like, yeah, we don't like him. But they do seem to like her, so they help her out. They feed her that night. It's described as like a meal of liquids, like it's all soups. So there's a vegetable soup that's the salad course, and the dessert course is like a fruit soup. I don't know why I find that funny. She also shows the elves her magic book, which they like. She meets Slannon, the elf's chief trader, and he gives her a gift, a piece of pottery by the famed Agulon. They didn't give one to her father because he wouldn't have appreciated it. But Slannon says, we like to give our best pieces away sometimes when we find people who love them. They send her off the next day with a pony and a bunch of food. At some point she goes to sleep, and then she is woken up by ogres. Oh no. They plan to eat her later, so they order her to not run away and to go to sleep. They all go to sleep. Later she wakes up and all of the ogres are still asleep, so she tries to break the spell and run away. She tries to order herself to break the spell. None of that's working. So then she decides that she's going to speak to them in Ogrese and try and convince them to let her go. She knows some Ogrese from that exotic languages book, and she tries to practice the words to herself. And later, when the ogres wake up, she is able to use Ogrese to convince them that they are full. They've eaten so many people, they can't eat any more. They're stuffed. They should just go back to sleep. Then, Prince Char and his knights show up, because they're doing border patrol stuff. Ella convinces the ogres to let the knights tie them up. So now the ogres are all tied up and gagged so they can't hurt anyone. And we find out that the knights had put wax in their ears so they can't hear if there's an ogre, so they can't be compelled. And Ella tells one of the ogres, you are never going to eat me, I told him in Ogrese. I am not an it, and I am not your dinner. And how do you like being tricked into doing what you don't want to do? Sort of continuing the ogres being the inverse of Ella. Once Char takes the wax out of his ears, he and Ella talk. They catch up a little bit. Ella explains that she was on her way to this giant's wedding. And so Char sends the knight, Sir Stefan, to accompany Ella to this wedding so that she's not alone in the woods. Then once they get to the wedding, Sir Stefan leaves. Ella is just in time for the wedding, and she spots her father, and she also spots a group of fairies. After the ceremony is over, Lucinda goes up to the couple, and she gives them the gift that they can never be apart, which the giants are very upset by, because that's not a good gift. So then at the wedding reception, Ella is able to find Lucinda and the other fairies, and they are trying to explain to Lucinda that this is not a good gift and she should take it back. Then Lucinda spots Ella spying on them, and so Ella panics and she pretends that she doesn't speak Carian. Carian is kind of common, it's the language of the kingdom, and that's what people are speaking if they're not speaking a different language. And so she pretends she only speaks Aorthan. She doesn't tell Lucinda that Lucinda gave her the gift of obedience. She figures that wouldn't end well. Instead, she says that she is naturally obedient and asks for Lucinda to give her a gift to make her not obedient. This bluff reverse psychology does not work. Lucinda's like, no, being obedient's a great thing. Be happy about it. And so now Ella is happy about her obedience because she is following the order telling her to be happy. That's one of the craziest things about this curse, is that it can like change her thoughts. It's not just actions. She can also be made to think differently. So Ella finds her father, and apparently he sold an estate that didn't belong to him. And so now he has to repay them, and like basically they're broke is the upshot of that. His plan is to sell everything and then marry Ella off to a rich man. And because Ella's happy about following an order, she's like, cool. Ella and her father go back home together, and Mandy is very upset by these developments. The fact that Ella is going to be married off, and the fact that she met Lucinda, and Lucinda made her happy about the curse. Ella's father has invited a rich earl to come have dinner with Ella to try and like get him to want to marry her. And for this dinner, Ella's father has special mushrooms delivered. And Ella and Mandy are in the kitchen like, what are these mushrooms? So they look them up, and these mushrooms apparently magically make people like each other. Mandy tries to swap out the mushrooms for different mushrooms, but is caught by Ella's father. So now these mushrooms are in the food. So now we have Ella's consent and free will being violated in a different way. She's being roofied. So that's cool. We meet the Earl. He is older than Ella's father. Ella's father pretends that he doesn't like mushrooms, and then the Earl is also like, oh, I'm allergic to mushrooms. So now Ella is the only one who eats these mushrooms. So she is now obsessed with the Earl. Just a reminder, she is 15. That night, Mandy comes to check on her and is like, did Lucinda give you another spell that made you happy, or did she just order you to be happy? And Ella's like, she just ordered me to be happy. And then Mandy's like, okay, in that case, feel however you want to feel about these orders, which reverses the happiness thing. Because if it had been another gift or curse, Mandy wouldn't have been able to reverse it. But since it's just an order, we're able to undo it. Then poor Ella basically gets like whiplash. She's like extremely upset. The next morning, Ella's father has left a note for her. Ella's concerned that the note will contain an order, so she has Mandy read it first. And basically, the Earl's estate has burned down. So the Earl is no longer rich, so there's no point in Ella marrying this Earl. And so now we've moved on to plan B, which is that Ella's father is going to marry Dame Olga. Ella is pissed about this, obviously. And then we go to the wedding, which is being held in that old abandoned castle that's used for special occasions. And Lucinda is there. And Ella's like, damn it, I can't let her see me, because then she will know that I was lying to her before about only speaking Aorthan. She's sort of laying low. And then after the ceremony, Lucinda gives the couple the gift of eternal love. So no matter what happens, they will always be deeply in love with each other. Then Ella goes to hide upstairs. And then Char showed up. He got here just in time for the wedding, and he's only really here because he wants to see Ella. There are allegedly some secret passages in this castle, so the two of them look for them. They want to mark where they've already looked, like Hansel and Gretel, so Char takes the buttons off of his shirt, and they leave like a trail. Then they find a secret compartment under a bench. And in this secret compartment are glass slippers that fit her perfectly, because these are magical fairy-made glass slippers, and Ella has tiny fairy-blessed feet. Then Ella and Char dance, and they talk about whether or not the gift of eternal love is a good thing or not. And Ella's thinking of the fact that she was almost just forced to marry this Earl, and she's like, well, if people are forced to get married, maybe it's a good thing if they love each other. I mean, it doesn't matter for you, because you can marry whoever you want. And he's like, you can't? And she's like, ugh, I almost gave the curse away. And I'm like, no, you didn't. This is the old-timey times. Sometimes women are married off or like forced into marriage or whatever. It's entirely possible that she would have to marry someone she doesn't want to. Curse or no curse. Though I will say that my understanding of royals at this time is often they're put in like political marriages. So I don't know if he would actually have that much freedom to marry whoever he wants. I think we're implying that he can. But whatever, I just thought it was funny. Like, I almost gave the curse away. Then Ella's like, whatever, I'm too young to marry anyways. And they agree that the gift of eternal love was a bad thing, and nobody should be forced to love. I agree, love shouldn't be dictated. Nothing should be dictated. An idiotic remark to a future king, but I was thinking of Lucinda. He answered seriously, as little as possible. Then we find out that Prince Char is going to leave and spend a year in the court of Eortha as like a political thing. Then they realize it's time to go downstairs. It was mentioned earlier that Ella and her mother used to slide down stair rails, like slide down the banisters. And Ella tells this to Char, and so the two of them slide down the banisters together. Char goes first and he catches her at the bottom and they like spin around together. And then we turn and like everyone's standing there and has seen her and Char together. And then in the very awkward carriage ride home, Dame Olga is like, "How rich are we?" And Ella's dad is like, "As rich as we were before. Marriage doesn't change that." And she's like, "Yes, I know how rich I am. How rich are we?" And so she finds out that we are poor. And so Dame Olga and Hattie and Olive are like, "Well, we are rich. It's Ella that's poor. Your side of the family is poor." Then when they're at home, Char tries to visit Ella, but Hattie keeps her in her room. And she sees like a journal entry in her magic book where Char is basically like, "I don't know what's wrong. Is she like mad at me? I don't know." And so then Ella, through Mandy, sends Char a letter, basically semi-explaining. She, I think, says that her dad was mad at her and kept her in her room. Which I don't know why she wouldn't just say, "Dame Olga and Hattie and Olive are mad at me." Maybe she's like embarrassed? I don't know. But she apologizes to Char and is like, "Let's keep sending letters." Then Ella's father leaves. He's basically like, "I love Dame Olga so much, but also we hate each other. And it's probably going to be easier if I'm off on a trading expedition and can yearn and love her from afar." So then, as soon as Ella's father leaves, Ella is moved into the servant quarters. And Hattie tells Dame Olga, "I don't know why, but Ella is obedient and she will do whatever you tell her to do." And so Ella is made to be a maid. Ella is forced to be a maid. That sounds better. The one good thing is that Mandy is still here. Dame Olga and her daughters love Mandy's cooking, so they're not going to get rid of her. And so Mandy is sort of able to help out and watch over Ella. Ella sends a letter to her father that's basically like, "Hey, it's real bad over here. Can you come back and help?" Then there are quite a few letters back and forth with Char. My main memory of reading this book as a kid was we were on some sort of road trip, which now I can't read in the car at all. I can't look at anything in the car. I get car sick. It feels like a superpower I've lost, being able to read in the car. But I was reading this book on this road trip, and I remember the letters back and forth with Char. It's possible that's the first time I had read something like that in a book, like letters within a book, like that sort of different format where it's not just the narrative. So possibly that's why it sticks in my head so much. But Ella and Char are sending letters back and forth. She doesn't explain her circumstance. She says it's because she doesn't want to have to explain the curse. I feel like possibly she's also just embarrassed by her circumstance and she doesn't want to upset Char. But it is odd because I don't think it will be giving the curse away. I mean, like, normal people who aren't cursed can be abused by their families. Saying that Dame Olga and her daughters are making her work as a maid, I don't think would be giving the curse away. But I think part of that is the, like, Gail Carson Levine thing of, like, she thinks it doesn't make sense that Ella would have followed their orders, so the curse is like an explanation for that. And so if she thinks that the curse is the only explanation as to why Ella is going along with this, then I guess it would be exposing the curse to tell Char about it. I don't think so, but I think Gail thinks so. So the stories that Ella tells Char in these letters are not things she experienced, but things she observed. So like, there was a party at the house, and she was working the party as a maid, but she tells Char all the details of the party as though she was attending it as a guest. That sort of thing. Then in one of the letters, Char asks if she's still too young to marry, sort of implying that he would like to marry her. And then she gets another letter from Char where he basically says that he loves her. And he feels sort of vulnerable saying it because what if she doesn't return his affections? But he's being brave and admitting that he loves her. And then Ella's like, "Oh no, I can't be with Prince Char. People could order me to do anything. First of all, if I marry Prince Char, my stepfamily knows about my obedience, so they're going to order me around to their own benefit to get money and power and status from this marriage. And then even people who don't know about the curse could order me in such a way that would be a danger to either Char or the kingdom. And she's like, I can't tell Char about the curse, but even if I could, what precautions would we take to prevent people from ordering me to do bad things? Would we, like, lock me away in a tower? So she decides it's too dangerous for her to be with Char, and she has to make Char not love her anymore. So she writes a letter to Char, framing it as being from Hattie. So she forges a letter from Hattie saying that Ella and Mandy ran off. She mentions Mandy because Mandy was the go-between for Char and Ella, because Ella couldn't be sending letters to the prince, but she could give her letter to Mandy, and then Mandy could pretend it was something else and send it to the prince. So we're saying Mandy is also gone. You can't get in contact with her either. And she says in this letter, Ella has gone off and married a rich man. She never loved you. She was always toying with you. She would read your letters out to the family and, like, make fun of you. She only cares about money. She's heartless. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. And so Ella makes this letter that she forges to be from Hattie, and then she also writes another letter from herself saying, ha ha ha, I've married a rich man, I'm so happy. And then she has Mandy give both of these letters to Prince Char. Ella explains everything to Mandy and is like, did I do the right thing? And Mandy's like, yeah, it's dangerous for you to marry the prince, but this whole thing sucks. This whole obedience thing has gone too far. It's prevented you from being with your love. So she angrily summons Lucinda. Ella is, like, hiding in the room. And Mandy pretends that she had gotten in an argument with another fairy. And they had made a bet that if Lucinda spent 3 months as a squirrel and 3 months as an obedient human, that she would hate it so much that she would take the gifts back. Because Lucinda loves turning people into squirrels also. And Lucinda's like, no, I wouldn't do that. They're great gifts. And Mandy's like, cool, then I win the bet, because I bet that you would be too scared to do it. And so Lucinda angrily turns herself into a squirrel to prove a point. And Ella's like, do you think she'll learn her lesson? And Mandy's like, I don't care, I just needed her out of the way. Then finally, Ella gets a letter back from her father. And he's like, yeah, that seems bad, but I'm not coming home. Don't worry, I'm finding a rich man to marry you off to, and then you'll be able to leave the house where you're forced to be a maid. Then Ella checks her magic book and sees a journal entry from Char, and he believed her ruse, and so now he hates Ella, and he calls her, like, a bunch of terrible names, which I don't appreciate. So then months pass of Ella working at the house. Char is finishing up his year in Aortha. Lucinda is finishing up her 3 months as a squirrel and 3 months as an obedient human, so 6 months in total. So both of those things, Lucinda and Char, are now wrapping up. Char is returning from his year in Aortha, and there's going to be 3 balls to celebrate his return. And Lucinda has finished off her 6-month experiment. And so Mandy summons Lucinda back to be like, hey, how'd it go? And Lucinda's like, oh my gosh, it was awful. I'm never going to give anyone a gift ever again. This sucked. And so Ella comes out, and she's like, so if you agree that that was terrible, will you please take my obedience away? And Lucinda's like, ugh, I wish I could, but I've now renounced all big magic. She's like, oh my god, Lucinda, you are so useless. But she's like, I feel bad for you, and if you ever need small magic, you can summon me and I'll do it for you. And then she leaves. Ella is pissed, obviously. And then Ella decides that she is going to go to the 3 balls, even though she is no longer on good terms with Char. She's going to wear a mask to the balls so that no one can recognize her. That night, when she looks in her magic book, she sees a page from Arita's diary. Arita is done with finishing school, and so she's back with her parents, and her parents own an inn. And as Prince Char is making his journey back from Aortha, he stayed at Arita's parents' inn. Apparently, Arita asked Char about Ella, like, hey, you know Ella, right? How is she? Is she okay? Because she, like, left finishing school in the middle of the night. And Char sort of delicately says, well, she married a rich man, and she's rich now, so I guess she's happy. And Arita's like, what the hell are you talking about? She didn't care about being rich. The other girls at finishing school didn't like me because I wasn't that rich and I was from Aortha. But Ella never cared about that kind of stuff. And Char's like, huh, interesting. Now it's time for the ball night 1. Ella gets all ready. She's wearing one of her mother's old gowns. She's wearing the glass slippers. She had taken them from the castle. And she's about to leave, but it's raining outside, and she doesn't have a carriage or anything, so she can't walk there in the rain. So she decides to summon Lucinda to help her. And Lucinda uses magic to transform a pumpkin into a coach, because if she's not materializing it from thin air, that makes the magic smaller. She also gives Ella a deadline of midnight, which also makes the magic not quite as big. Mandy is standing off to the side, like, judging. Like, this is not very small magic. Ella goes to the ball, and there's a line to meet Char. She isn't going to get in line, but then when the line kind of peters out, she's like, well, I'll just go talk to him real quick. She says that her name is Leela, which is an anagram for Ella, and she's from a town called Bast, which is near where the elves live. He doesn't seem that interested in her until she says something to him in Eorthin, which at this point he misses Eortha, so he's very excited that she speaks some of it. She sort of downplays how good she is at the language. And then the two of them dance. Night 2 of the ball, Char wants to dance with her, and he mentions that on night 3 of the ball, he is going to have to sing something. So then night 3, Char introduces Ella to his parents, and Ella's carriage is orange because it was a pumpkin. And Char's like, your carriage is an unusual color. And Ella's like, not in Bast. That's very normal in Bast, actually. And so after Ella meets Char's parents, she overhears his mom say, I don't remember any orange coaches in Bast. Char's mother also says that Ella reminds her of a lady she used to know, and she's referring to Ella's mother. Then Hattie comes over and tries to interrogate Ella, like trying to figure out who she is and why she's wearing a mask. But then Char sweeps Ella away to dance. While they're dancing, Ella starts to cry that this will soon be over. Like, she's reconnected with Char, but she can't really keep this ruse up, so this is sort of the last night of this. And Char says that he is resolved to never marry, but he would like to be friends with her. But then Hattie comes over and rips off Ella's mask. Both Hattie and Char recognizes her, and so Ella panics and runs home, and in the process of running home, she loses one of the glass slippers. She tells Mandy what happened, and their plan is to run away. They're both packing, and Ella has changed out of her gown into her maid outfit. But then Char comes to the house, and he wants to see everyone, even the servants. And Char has the glass slipper, and he's like, this slipper will only fit Ella, whether she's a duchess or a scullery maid. But then Hattie and Olive want to try the slipper on, which is silly because he just said it's Ella's slipper. Like, he knows it's Ella's. But they both try the slipper, obviously it doesn't fit, and then Ella tries the slipper, and Char says to her, you don't have to be Ella if you don't want to be. Like, basically, we can let this go and move on if you're, like, uncomfortable or something. Which, at this point, I wonder what he's thinking is going on. Because it's very obviously Ella. Hattie is like, oh no, that's Cinders, our scullery maid. It's like, no, it's Ella, clearly. Why are you pretending like this isn't Ella? And Ella tries to say, I'm not Ella, but she's, like, crying. And Char's like, that letter was a trick. And he, like, glares at Hattie. And he's like, do you love me? Tell me. And she's like, I do. And then he's like, then marry me, which is framed as an order. And then we get Ella's internal struggle of, obviously she wants to marry Char. Also, she's been ordered to, but she doesn't want to put him in any danger. She's scared for him. And so she's able to say no, which breaks the curse. And so then Hattie is trying to order her to go to her room, but the curse is broken. I had been able to break the curse myself. I'd had to have reason enough, love enough to do it, to find the will and the strength. Kyria was enough. Char was enough. So when the stakes are the kingdom and Char, she was finally able to break the curse with her love for them. I think her love for Char more than for the kingdom, but, like, whatever. And so at first she's very excited that she's broken the curse, and she's, like, running around saying, no, I won't marry you. And then she calms down and she's like, well, actually, I've broken the curse, so now there's no reason not to. When you asked for my hand a few minutes ago, I was still too young to marry. I looked up at him and saw a smile start. I'm older now, so much older that not only can I marry, but I beg you to marry me. I knelt and took his hand. Then we hear about their wedding, which is, like, basically an epilogue. Her stepfamily is not invited. Her father was invited, but he was traveling, and so he couldn't get there in time. Good riddance. And we hear that all the friends from our journey are there. Char and Ella have kids, and she travels with Char around the kingdom for diplomatic things and gets to use her different languages. The end. I have to go pick up my brother, or I guess find Lucinda. I don't know. I'll be right back. I'm not wearing a cape out in the world. So here are my thoughts on the book. I found it kind of stressful. I feel like as an adult, I've had trouble reading about kids going on adventures. Because as a kid, you're reading it and you're like, woo, adventure. But as an adult, I'm just so stressed out and scared. I'm like, oh my God, you're a child. You're so vulnerable. Anything could happen to you. Why are you going on a quest? You have so little agency in the world. Which, like, Ella especially is very vulnerable. And a lot of this book is so dark and not fun. Like Hattie making her not eat for days on end. Because I was having trouble reading it physically, I switched to the audiobook because I thought that would be easier, like have it playing while I'm doing something else. I didn't love the audiobook. This audiobook came out in the year 2000 and is voiced by Eden Riegel. And I don't agree with any of the character choices that Eden made. She also made Ella sound very young.
That fool of a fairy Lucinda did not intend to lay a curse on me. She meant to bestow a gift.
Like, Ella's 15 for most of this book, and she sounds like a child. I still listen to it, but I just wanted to complain. This book is quite interesting as a Cinderella adaptation. Having a fairy godmother who sucks. The stepmother and stepsisters are introduced in her life very early on, but they don't become her family for a while. Ella isn't made a servant until towards the end of the book. We had to get the glass slippers in there somehow. So the explanation is that she has fairy-sized feet. And then I feel like there's no real reason for Char to have her try the slipper back on. But that's one of those things where it's a Cinderella story, so we wanted to put it in there. I really liked the use of the letters in the book. Gail has said that it was a way to get Ella information that she wouldn't otherwise have known. But it works really well as exposition. It doesn't feel like forced. It feels like you're being let in on secrets. Because Ella's basically like spying on all the people she knows. I also feel like since it's quite a lonely book, like Ella is sort of isolated for a lot of it. Even allies like Char and Arita, she can't tell them about the curse, so there's a distance there. The letters gave us information and also added to that sense of distance. So I love the letters. I thought that worked really well. I liked that there was such an emphasis on different languages. This is my childhood copy, and it has a lot of bonus material in the back, and a lot of it is related to the languages. Gail Carson Levine said that she was inspired by Tolkien, which I mean, like, obviously. And so this sort of explains the languages and gives you a glossary of all the different words in the languages that are used. So there's Gnomic, Abdigi, which is the language of the giants, Elfian, Eorthin, and Ogurese. Then, in 2004, Ella Enchanted was loosely adapted into a movie.
The film department at my agency called and said, well, Jane Starts wants to option it, and did not draw a breath before saying, but you know, very few options become movies. So I didn't break out the champagne. She didn't have a studio attached at that point. It didn't get real until they started casting it. David and I were allowed to go to 3 days of shooting in Ireland. Not sure if I should say this, so maybe you can tell me. But we talked to the screenwriters who were there, who were making last minute fixes, and they were unhappy because they were getting contradictory instructions from the producer and the director, and they would fix one thing and then have to unfix it, and they were unhappy campers. And that was very interesting for me, the writer.
The movie starts with opening narration, while a cover of the song Strange Magic plays, and we get a long aerial shot of the kingdom. Then we are introduced to our fourth wall breaking narrator. He is played by Eric Idle, and he does narration in like rhyming couplets. We go into the house and we meet Ella as a baby, as well as her mother and Mandy. Mandy is played by Minnie Driver. She played the mom on the ABC sitcom Speechless, which is about a family with 3 kids, one of whom has cerebral palsy, and it's sort of the antics they get up to as a family. My brother is nonverbal and autistic, so not quite the same situation, but it was still kind of a relatable show to me, and it's very fun disability representation. So that's how I know Minnie Driver, and I love her. We show that Mandy is bad at magic because she tries to get a washcloth to fly to her and it like hits her in the face. In the book, she isn't bad at magic. She just only does small things. But Mandy being bad at magic will come up later. Then Lucinda shows up, and she is played by Vivica A. Fox. I did not know who that was until I watched the Jane Mulcahy video about the Lifetime Wrong movies, which all feature Vivica A. Fox. So when I was looking up Ella Enchanted on IMDb, I was like, Vivica A. Fox? From the Wrong movies? Lucinda is wearing this sparkly little two-piece set.
Let's talk about that costume. I didn't imagine her looking anything like I ended up looking. It made a girl get up every morning and do her crunches and watch what I eat, that's for sure.
The fashion in this movie is iconic. It is a blend of medieval-inspired fashion with kind of 70s vibes and very much a 2000s influence. So it's like medieval 70s Y2K.
This director is very visual, so there was a lot of contact through drawings. He is a rare thing in a director, which is he understands drawings. So we've gone very hip, very much more modern. This isn't going to look like anything else you've ever seen, because it's not come from anything, it's come from complete imagination, just building on that, and then mixing it in with the medieval period, and also trying to get a very modern slant on it.
Mandy and Ella's mom try to hide the baby unsuccessfully, and Lucinda gives Ella the gift of obedience. And then the baby pees on her. The way the obedience works in this movie is someone gives Ella an order, there's a little sound effect that plays, and she's basically magically compelled to do it. So if you said, Sarah, grab that lip gloss, I would go, boop, and go grab it for you. Ella and Arita become friends at school. Ella defends her against people being prejudiced against Eorthians. Then we get the cake scene where Ella is told to eat cake, and she digs into the cake and eats like crazy and has to be told to stop. And then her mom and Mandy explain the curse to her. The effects of the curse are sort of exaggerated for comedy. So Ella is told to come practice her mandolin, and then is told to hurry up. And by hurrying up, she blurs down the staircase. She's going so fast, she's like the Flash. So in this movie, following the orders can occasionally give her unnatural abilities, but only really for the purposes of comic relief. Then Ella's mom gets sick and tells Ella to not tell anyone about the gift. She also tells Ella, what's inside you is stronger than any spell, and she gives Ella the necklace. Flash forward from child Ella, we now have young adult Ella, played by Anne Hathaway, who was fresh off of Princess Diaries. Apparently they are broke, so Ella's father marries Dame Olga. Ella's father seems nice in this movie, he's barely in it. And we are introduced to Dame Olga, Hattie, and Olive. They arrive at the house and are shocked and disgusted that Ella's father is poor. Hattie is played by Lucy Punch, and she is fantastically evil. She's weirdly played a lot of evil stepsisters over the course of her career, which is a fun niche to be in. There's some color coding going on with the characters, so Hattie is always in orange, Olive is always in purple, and Ella is always in blue. We learn that Hattie is the president of the Prince Char fan club. And Ella's like, you know that Char and his uncle are responsible for the segregation of the kingdom. And Hattie's like, but he's dreamy. Hattie is also disappointed by the amount of closet space that she's going to have, so she makes Ella give up space in her closet. Hattie also makes Ella give her her necklace. She originally frames it like a request, then like an order, and then when Ella gives it to her, she's like, oh, aren't you accommodating? Because I feel like often when you tell people to do things, you don't actually expect them to do it. But Ella just can't fight back. Then Ella's father leaves to go do some trading business, and we cut to the Frel Community College. Hattie and Ella are debating. I don't know exactly what the topic is. The point of this is to give you the lore drop about the political situation in the kingdom. An ogre allegedly killed Char's father, and so Char's uncle, King Edgar, used that as an excuse to segregate the kingdom. The kingdom now runs on the enslaved labor of giants and elves. Over the course of the debate, Hattie figures out about the curse. She casually tells Ella to just admit that she's an idiot and doesn't know what she's talking about, which then Ella does. And she also tells Ella to hold her tongue, and then Ella physically holds her tongue. I don't know if the curse is supposed to know about figurative language. I feel like it should. Then we meet Prince Char and King Edgar. King Edgar is played by Cary Elwes, who is extremely evil. He's like a maniacal mustache-twirling villain. He also has an unexplained talking snake. Nobody ever questions the snake or why it can talk. I know we have magical creatures, but this is just one weird snake. So, I don't know. Prince Char is played by Hugh Dancy. And uh-oh, it's time for my Hugh Dancy tangent. So, a few years ago, I got very into the NBC Hannibal TV show, which stars Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal and Hugh Dancy as FBI agent Will Graham. It's a weird show. It's very stylized. Everybody talks really weird, but I love it. And it is a running joke among fans of Hannibal that Hugh Dancy has had a really weird career. I feel like it's a thing where you become a fan of an actor and then you're like, well, now I want to watch everything they've been in. And the joke among Hannibal fans is that with Mads Mikkelsen, it's like respected Dutch indie movies and blockbusters where he plays the villain. With Hugh Dancy, it's a hodgepodge of weird box office failures and Hannibal. And he's currently on Law and Order. Ella Enchanted was one of his first big projects. They cast Anne Hathaway from the beginning, and then they had to go to England to scout who was going to be Prince Char, and they went with Hugh Dancy. I feel like up to that point, he had just done some period drama stuff in England. And in the behind the scenes of this movie, they talk about, oh, he's so great. He could be the next heartthrob actor.
Hugh Dancy, I think, is going to be the next huge heartthrob.
We went to London and auditioned him. And just like, oh my God. I mean, he was so perfect. You know, it's like a young Hugh Grant. He's so handsome, but so elegant and princely. You know, he's an Oxford graduate. He's very gracious. He's very intelligent. And he's very courtly.
That didn't happen. But he did do Hannibal, and I had not watched this movie since I had watched Hannibal, so it was kind of weird that it was Hugh Dancy. He's like a chivalrous prince in a peasant blouse, and I'm like, I'm used to seeing you shaking from encephalitis, covered in blood, with homoerotic tension with your therapist. This is weird. Anyway, so Prince Char and King Edgar have to go to a mall opening, and the Prince Char fan club is there. Ella and her friend Arita are also there, and they have protest signs saying to stop Ogreside. But Hattie is embarrassed by them and so comes over and tells Ella to go home. Ella is on her way home, but then Prince Char is being chased by his own fan club. And so Char grabs Ella and drags her behind a big rock, and they hide as the fan club runs past. And Ella is not happy to meet him because she doesn't like his political policies. And they're walking, kind of bickering, and then Ella realizes that she left her bag. Prince Char tells her to stay there while he goes and gets it. And so because she has to stay right there and she can't move, she is almost run over by a carriage. I don't know how realistic that is. Couldn't the guy driving the carriage stop the carriage? Or like slow down? I guess he was just assuming that Ella was going to move, because like, why wouldn't she move? But it is funny them cutting back and forth between Ella and this horse-drawn carriage, and you're like, oh no, she's gonna be run over, when the guy has ample time to stop. Prince Char knocks her to the ground, saving her, and he says that she's not like other girls. And she's like, you have no idea. Then Hattie and Olive show up, and Hattie is pissed that Ella is spending time with the prince. So Hattie sends Olive and Ella back to the mall. And then Hattie freaks Char out by being so weirdly obsessed with him, and he runs off into the woods. Back at the mall, Ella is with Arita, and Arita's like, you're acting weird. Which, can I just say, I do think it's weird that in this movie, Arita and Ella are like childhood best friends. They've known each other for years and years and years. Because in the book, Ella and Arita only know each other for like maybe a few months, right? How long is she at finishing school? So it makes more sense that Arita hasn't figured out that something weird is going on with Ella. But if they've known each other for years and years and years, you're saying there hasn't been anything else like the cake incident? Nothing that has tipped Arita off that something weird is going on? So her saying that Ella is acting kind of weird, it's like, wouldn't she always be kind of weird? Like, I guess now because of the introduction of Hattie and Olive, and because Hattie and Olive know about the curse and are taking advantage of it. Also, they are on an escalator that is being operated by a crank. Then Hattie and Olive make Ella steal things. They're not being subtle about it. I don't think they actually want the things. I think they just want to get Ella in trouble. So we have a slapstick segment of Ella running away and having to follow people's orders. And it's all very mall-themed orders. So it's like a perfume sample lady saying, try this perfume. Then the guards tell her to freeze as she is mid-air jumping over a barrel, and so she like magically freezes in mid-air. Then they arrest her. She's released back to the house, and Dame Olga is very upset, and Mandy's standing off to the side with her arms crossed, like maybe someone put her up to it, which gives Hattie the idea to make Ella say that Arita put her up to it. So then Dame Olga and Hattie make Ella tell Arita that she never wants to see her again and she could never be friends with an Aorthian. Again, I feel like Arita would know something was up. Also, my loophole for this would have been, Dame Olga told me to tell you, and then say it. Because there's nothing in the order saying that you can't say that you were told to say it. What? Yeah, that makes sense. It's Taskmaster rules. You gotta look for the loophole. Now Ella's upset that the curse has made her do something so horrible, so she wants to find Lucinda and beg her to take the curse back. Mandy agrees and shows Ella the magic book. In this version, the magic book is Mandy's boyfriend. She was trying a spell to cut his hair and accidentally turned him into a magic book. I don't know how those wires got crossed, but now we have this book who is a man. His name is Benny, and he can show you where a person is and sort of images of them. So we ask where Lucinda is, and we find out that she is at a wedding in Giantsville. Ella's stepfamily then demands that she pick bouquets for them because they have a portrait sitting the next day. So Ella picks some poison ivy and then sneaks out of the house. Ella is walking through the forest with Benny the book and then comes across some men tormenting an elf. She asks the men to leave the elf alone, which obviously doesn't work, and then the elf instructs her to fight them. So he's like, kick them, punch him, whatever. And so these orders give Ella magical ninja fighting abilities. This elf's name is Slannon, and he takes Ella to the elf village for dinner. Now, elves, by law, have to only work as entertainers, so they sing and dance. And when guests come to the elf village, the elves all have to sing for them. So we get this shot of Slannon and Ella running through the elf village as a bunch of green-clad showbiz elves are singing a song. Over dinner, we learn that Slannon wants to be a lawyer and not an entertainer, and he also sees the talking book. Then we see as elves are being forced into a wagon, apparently the elves have to perform at the prince's coronation, which is coming up, and Ella says that Slannon should petition the prince to allow him to become a lawyer. So Slannon is going to come with Ella, they're going to go to the giant's wedding, and they're also going to find the prince. Back at the house, Ella is sent a letter from Prince Char inviting her to the coronation ball, but this letter is intercepted by the stepfamily. Back in the forest, Slannon and Ella run across some ogres in the forest. Ella tries to explain to them that she supports them politically, which does not work, and they order her to get into the pot. Or not get into the pot, they tie her up and she's like dangling over the pot. Then Prince Char and his knights show up and they free Slannon and Ella. And Char holds one of the ogres at sword point and is like, "Are you one of the ogres who killed my father?" And the ogre's like, "Your father was a great king. Why would we kill him?" And so Char lets the ogres go. It's interesting because this is similar to the ogre scene in the book, but in the book, Ella saves herself. Then Char and Ella bicker, and he's like, "I've saved you multiple times and you haven't said thank you." And she's like, "Thank you for saving me." Also, he got a cut on his arm, and so she helps him with the cut, and he like takes his shirt off. And he finds out that she's going to the giant's wedding and convinces her to let him come with her. Also, we find out that the evil talking snake has stowed away in one of the saddlebags to spy on Prince Char. Our whole posse is riding horses down the beach, and Slannon tries to ask Prince Char about being a lawyer, and Prince Char's like, "That's not really my area of expertise. You should ask my uncle. I'm sure he'd be cool with it." And Ella's like, "You're literally about to be the king." And he's like, "Well, it's not like I had any say in the matter." And Ella's like, "Thanks to your uncle, a lot of people don't have a say in the matter. Nobody should be forced to do things they don't want to do. Take it from someone who knows." And that's like our thesis for the movie. We make it to Giantville, and we find out that the giants are treated like slaves. Then Char and Ella are going into the wedding, and there's some clearly ADR where they say, "Maybe you can get to the bottom of this," referring to the giant situation, and "maybe you can find your godmother." I guess they realized in editing that they needed to really establish the stakes of this wedding. Char talks to a giant about what's going on, and that goes well. Then we find out that Lucinda left, and she got in trouble for flying under the influence. Ella wants to leave because Lucinda isn't here, and Char's like, "It's the middle of the night, we should stay." She says no, he tells her to stay, and then she's begrudgingly like, "Okay, I guess." And he apologizes. He's like, "I don't want to make you do anything you don't want to do." But Ella's starting to get a crush on him, so she's like, no, it's fine, I can stay. And Ella's complaining to Char, like, I can't believe I missed her. She could be anywhere. I really need to find her. We can't specify that it's because of the curse, but just, she needs to find her. And Char says that he can get Ella into the Hall of Records, which has every year's census. Would that be helpful at all? I guess that would maybe tell us where she's living, but clearly that's not where she is right now. We need to know where she is now. I guess the plan is to find out where she lives and then, like, wait outside her house? Whatever, so Ella's very grateful. Then the giants want Slannon to sing, because he's an elf, and elves sing, and he's like, no, I don't do that. And then the giants are like, Ella, how about you sing? And so then Ella is made to sing Somebody to Love by Queen. And we, like, stop the whole movie to, like, sing this song. My parents don't really listen to music that much. My mom doesn't listen to music at all. My dad mostly listens to, like, house EDM music. So I didn't have exposure to a lot of music as a kid. So I did not know this was a Queen song until I was quite old. I thought it was just a song they wrote for the movie. No, it's a very famous song. We get a reminder that the evil snake is here. And then there is a giant woman who kind of has a crush on Slannon, and so the two of them hang out. The giant woman is played by Heidi Klum. I did not recognize Heidi Klum in this context. Char and Ella are bonding by the fireplace. Their dead parents and Char becoming king. And then he says, kiss me. And then he says, that wasn't an order. And she says, I know. But it was an order. You could have just rephrased it so he says, I'd like you to kiss me, or do you want to kiss me? Something where it's not a direct order, because I don't think that's how it works. Let me rephrase. I know that's not how it works, so they should have changed it. The coronation is coming up, and so Ella's stepfamily are staying in the capital city, because that's where the coronation is going to be. And Hattie and Olive are with the fan club taking a tour of the kingdom. And they're all, like, freaking out that they're in the palace lobby, and Prince Char has walked on these floors. Ella and Char and Slannon make it back to the kingdom. Slannon isn't let in because he's an elf. But Ella and Char go into the castle. They have to evade the fan club. And Char is going to take Ella to the Hall of Records. But they are interrupted by King Edgar. They talk a little bit, and then King Edgar says, well, hop to it. And then Ella literally hops away. And King Edgar says to his evil snake, like, yes, there is something odd about that girl. Char talks to King Edgar, says that he wants to make some political changes in the kingdom, and says that he wants to propose to Ella that night. Then Edgar talks to Hattie and Olive. He wants information on Ella in exchange for Prince Char's hand in marriage. And so Hattie tells him that Ella does whatever she's told. So then Edgar goes to the Hall of Records and sort of orders Ella around to prove that he knows about the curse. Then he tells her that Prince Char is going to take her to the Hall of Mirrors, and at midnight she has to take this dagger and stab him. And she's like, you'd kill your own nephew? And he's like, I killed his father. I want to be king. And he also orders her to tell no one of this plan, which is a smart caveat to add. Ella writes Char a letter that they can't be together and she can't explain why. And then she has Slannon tie her up in a field so she can't get to the ball. And she tells Slannon to get as much help as he can and keep the prince away from the king. Then Lucinda happens to show up where Ella is. She, like, falls out of the sky. And she's like, oh, this isn't where I meant to go. And she's about to leave. And Ella's like, wait! You gave me the gift of obedience. Please take it back. And Lucinda's like, no. She's like, don't blame me for your problems. Did I tie you to this tree? And Ella's like, no, but... And so Lucinda's like, to prove how great I am, she unchains Ella and then puts her in a magical ball gown. And then Ella is magically dragged to the ball. Lucinda is fantastically unhelpful in every universe. She shows up at the ball. Prince Char is happy to see her. He's like, that letter was weird, but I don't care. Do you love me? And she's like, yes, but... And he's like, great. So then he takes her to the Hall of Mirrors. She's crying, and he proposes. And the clock strikes midnight, and she's about to stab him. But then she orders herself to no longer be obedient. She's like looking at herself in the mirror, and her love for Char is able to break the spell. But she was clearly about to stab him. So then the guards take her away. And she doesn't explain what was going on, even though the curse is broken, so she can tell him everything now. She doesn't say, your uncle means you harm. She just says, wait, no, and then lets herself be dragged away. And then she's locked in the dungeon. Slannon has brought together some elves and giants, and their plan is to break into the castle. We also get reunited with Benny the Book. He was in the Hall of Records, and then he got recycled and thrown into the garbage. And Benny the Book was in the Hall of Records when Edgar told Ella to kill the prince. So Benny's like, I think it's something to do with Edgar. I think they're in trouble. And it's like, shouldn't you know the whole plan? You were there. Whatever. Then some ogres also show up to help. They sneak into the castle by all piling into an executioner's wagon, because I think Ella's going to be executed. And they break Ella out of jail. They also see in the book, when they ask where Edgar is, that he has poisoned the crown. And that's how he's planning to kill Char at the coronation. So then it's time for the coronation. And our ragtag team crashes in. And then King Edgar activates the Red Guard, and these, like, red-clad ninjas drop from the ceiling. I believe in the behind the scenes, the director said that this was a suggestion from the studio.
Okay, so now, should we talk about the Red Guard? Are people wondering what these ninjas are doing in here?
But there's a whole backstory.
There's
that
a
didn't make it into the
backstory.
movie. It wasn't really necessary.
It was sort of an idea from the studio that maybe there should be ninjas in there. And I think at the time I thought, it's just so crazy, it just might work. So it's a bit surreal that ninjas appear at the end, but
medieval ninjas are
I
bad.
think it's pretty fun, actually.
I think at this stage you're just, pushing the movie, wrapping it up and up and up and up. Chuck in as much as you can.
Gets so crazy.
No comment. So then we get a big fight scene. Mandy is finally able to turn Benny back into a human man. Ella is able to explain everything to Char. The evil snake tries to bite Char to, venomously kill him. And so then King Edgar admits to his evil plan, and he's like, you're not fit to wear this crown, only I'm fit to wear this crown, forgetting that it's poisoned. And then he flops onto the ground. Ella kisses Char, and Hattie rushes over and orders her not to. But Ella isn't cursed anymore. So she's like, wanna bet? And then takes her necklace back. It always bothered me as a kid that they're, snapping the necklace off. I'm like, aren't you breaking the clasp? Because if I, yanked it, it's not gonna, snap off of your neck. What are we? Whatever. Then it's time for the wedding. We get a clearly added in shot of Rita. Remember her? And then Ella and Char sing a duet of Don't Go Breaking My Heart. We get basically a curtain call, all of the different characters come in and dance. And that's the end of the movie. It's an odd movie. I would say quite an unfaithful adaptation. Gail Carson Levine has said that it is so different from the book that it is hard to compare them and to view them as just separate creative acts. But compare them I shall try. First of all, we have an evil uncle and a talking snake. Gail has specifically mentioned this as I don't know why they put that in there.
I had what they called consulting rights, which meant that that they had to show me scripts. I could weigh in and they could ignore everything I said. So when I said, why does there need to be an evil uncle and a talking snake? They ignored me.
But I will say, Cary Elwes is so fun as this villain that it's hard for me to be that mad about it. It's very fun every time he's on screen. It does change the whole plot, because in the book, the villain is the curse itself and sort of the stepfamily. And now we have this guy here with a scheme. Also, this movie is way less of a Cinderella story. The book was already kind of unconventional. In this one, we have stepsisters and a fairy godmother and a ball, but Ella is never a servant. In this, the midnight deadline is when she has to stab the prince by, not when the magic wears off. There's no glass slippers. She steals a pair of glass slippers in the mall scene where she has to steal things, but that's our only nod to them. Part of what's happening is that the timeline of the movie is completely squished. The book takes place, not including the childhood segments, it takes place over the course of 2 years maybe? The movie feels like maybe a week or two from when the dad marries Dame Olga to when we defeat King Edgar. And so there's no time for Ella to be a servant because she's going on a quest the whole time. The dad is nice in this version and also barely in it. Maybe they thought it was a bummer that the dad was an asshole. Maybe that's why they changed it. They also added in a discrimination plotline, which is interesting. It sort of parallels Ella's struggle. People being forced to do things they don't want to do. The giants are slaves, the ogres are banished, the elves are entertainers. The book had creatures in a zoo, but we never really deal with that. The fact that the royal family has zoo creatures that are like sentient, and that pet centaur who's, I guess, not an intelligent being. I'd say that in both the book and the movie, Arita faces discrimination for being from Eortha, so that's kind of there. Arita is also barely in the movie. I mean, that's kind of true of the book as well, though. She's in one section, and then we never see her again until the very end. I felt like since we were rewriting the whole plot of the movie anyway, we could have just added more Arita. Like maybe a scene where they reunite and Ella explains the curse to her and apologizes. Because book Ella just ghosts her. She just disappears. Whereas movie Ella has to say some terrible things to her. And then really hot take, I feel like she could have gone on the quest. Maybe they were worried that it was too much of a girl movie, so they were like, we need all these guys to go on the quest with her. But I would have loved a version where Arita figures out that something's going on, possibly because of the very out-of-character friendship breakup. And she's like, I want to come with you and help you. Also, it's interesting that in the movie, I was about to say Anne Hathaway, Ella and Arita are both like political activists. Like they protest the mall opening. Ella has very strong political opinions. And this is paralleled with the Char fan club girls, who are screaming, simpering teenagers who are stalking the prince in a way that seems like it would escalate to real violence. I don't love the fan club. It feels like we're just needlessly making fun of teenage girls. Like, oh, they have posters of celebrities they like, and they think that boys are cute and act all silly. Like, obviously what the girls do in the movie is not okay, them, like, stalking him and whatever, but it's, like, inventing a guy to get mad at. Like, they invented these girls for the purposes of making fun of them. I don't like that. Because it also feels like the point of it is to parallel Ella with Hattie. Ella is not like other girls. She's not immediately infatuated with the prince. She's smart and she reads and she has opinions. Versus these other girls who are just walking caricatures. It's like that Wattpad fantasy of like you go to the One Direction concert and you're like reading a book. Like you don't even care. And then one of the band members, probably Harry Styles, they're all about Harry Styles, right? Is like, wow, I thought it was so cool how you were reading that book. That whole element of the movie feels so dated to me. Like, this is 2004 and we're making fun of women for existing. Because it also, I feel like, undermines the message of this is like a feminist girl power retelling. Also because I feel like we changed Ella's character to make her less competent. She saved Slannon, but that's only because she was ordered to and did it with magic, curse, order, ninja magic. She doesn't save herself from the ogres. Slannon the elf. Slannon is a name from the book. That's the name of the chief traitor. His whole deal is completely made up. We wanted like a comic relief side character. He's fine. Our other comic relief side character is Benny the Talking Book, who is obviously different from the way the magic book operates in the novel. In the Enchanted novel, the magic book is mainly used to show Ella letters, which works in a book because you're reading anyways. In a movie, it makes sense that they didn't want to have Ella reading letters all the time. Would she be reading them out loud? Would they do voiceover? Would they like cut to the scene that she's reading about? Like it doesn't, I understand why they didn't have it be letters. So instead we have a book who is Mandy's boyfriend, and he can talk and he can show us what people are up to. It's a fun idea, I guess. I feel like in execution it's a little bit awkward, because the way they filmed it, they just had the director saying the lines that Benny the Book would say. Then they recorded Benny separately and added him in post. And I believe they said in the behind the scenes that they hadn't even cast him yet when they were recording the normal stuff. So maybe that's why it's just a little bit awkward to me. I don't know. Ella's relationship with Char is very different in the movie. They go from hate to love because of the like political baggage, and their relationship is much faster as opposed to a slow buildup over like years. This is like maybe a few days, which means that in the book, I feel like it makes more sense that Char wants to propose to her. I mean, it's still kind of crazy because a lot of the time they've been like long distance, but in the movie, they've spent a few days together. Why are you proposing, man? And then the way that they changed the breaking of the curse is interesting. Both of them are just like through her force of will because of her love for Char and the fear that something bad will happen to him. I think in the movie they're trying to visualize it more. So instead of just a silent internal struggle over the course of like 2 or 3 pages of a book, it's escalated to not just fear that something bad could happen to Char, but action. She is going to stab him. This is visually represented by her ordering herself in the mirror, which I think has led people to believe that she could have just ordered herself at any old time and it would have worked. I don't think that's what we're saying. It is funny that they invented the Hall of Mirrors just so that they would have a mirror for Ella to say this into. They were like, no, we really need a mirror. Which they also included the disembodied floating head of her mother in that scene, which is kind of tacky. But it does look quite pretty, like her dress and the mirrors and like it's all very glittery and silvery, magical looking. I feel like it's possible they worked backwards from the idea of we want Ella to almost stab Char and then stop herself. And then they reverse engineered, well, then who would be ordering her to stab Char? And like, whatever, you know? I feel like they thought of this scene and they were like, this is a great scene, and then built the movie around it. I could be wrong, but it's such an iconic moment and such a purposeful change. Another change is that Lucinda never learns a lesson. Part of the resolution of the book is getting her to stop cursing people. In the book, we see her cursing multiple other people other than Ella, so we know that this is like a problem. In the movie, those instances are cut out, so maybe we're not supposed to think about the fact that she's probably going to keep doing it, you know? We spent so much time defeating King Edgar, we never defeated Lucinda. Other notes, the aesthetic is great. The costuming and the setting, it's like a modernized Ren Fair. It's almost Shrek-coded, you know? Modern pop culture references and jokes. There's a sign that says, "Welcome to Frel, home of the world's largest ball of twine." Prince Char is reading medieval teen magazine. The stepfamily arrives in a carriage that looks like a taxicab. They were going for a very fun and irreverent tone, and a pretty modernized look. Speaking of modernized, the music. It's a weird choice. The soundtrack is all pop music, but it's not pop music from 2004. It's all like 70s stuff that we have then done modern covers of. So there's, I think, Kelly Clarkson and Raven-Symoné. And then we get 2 musical numbers. Anne Hathaway sings in this movie. And apparently they came to her with this idea. They were like, we would like you to sing for this movie. And she was like, no. I believe she said that it sounded cheesy, which it is. She was right.
I even said, hey, Anne, if you do Ella, don't you want to sing and dance? And at the time she said, no, I couldn't do that in a movie.
So I kind of said thanks, but no thanks.
But then, of course, once we got her to Ireland,
He eventually kind of twisted my arm and convinced me that it was the right thing to do, and made me feel better by choosing a truly great song, which is Somebody to Love by Queen.
But she got on board with the idea when they proposed the Queen song. She's a great singer. I mean, she obviously won the Oscar for Les Mis. It is kind of odd, though, that they so wanted her to sing. Because it's not like she had a music career. It's not like she was known for singing. I guess they must have known that she could sing, and they were like, this'll be fun. These many choices to the source material, unfortunately, did not pay off. It was a box office flop. With a budget of $31 million, it only made $27 million. I don't know, maybe they made some money from DVD sales. Speaking of, my mom was like, hey, we just have the DVD. And so the first time I watched it for this video, I watched it on a little portable DVD player with my mom, which was very fun. And the great thing about DVDs is that they have bonus features. First, there is a commentary track with Anne Hathaway, Hugh Dancy, and the director, which gave various fun production details. Then there are deleted scenes. These scenes are almost all very short. Most of them would just have been a slightly longer bit of an existing scene. There is Olga, Hattie, and Olive in the carriage ride to Ella's house. Hattie is looking at her teen magazine. We find out that Olive likes to steal things. When Hattie makes Ella give up her closet space, there's a deleted scene where she has Ella burn her own clothes. Which I'm glad they cut that out because Hattie should have figured it out just from that. Like, who's gonna burn their own clothes? Clearly something's happening. There was a scene where the snake returned to King Edgar and gave him a little update. There was a longer version of the Hall of Records scene where Ella reads about various places that Lucinda has been. There was a scene where King Edgar is poisoning the crown with like lightning going on in the background. And then the 2 longer scenes are After the almost stabbing, there is a montage where Ella is sad in the dungeon and Char is sad in his bedroom, and Benny the book is thrown away in the garbage. There was also an ending scene at the wedding where the dad says he wants a divorce from Dame Olga, and Slandon's like, I'm a lawyer, here's my business card. Then Lucinda comes to give a gift to Ella and Char. They politely decline. Hattie says that she wants a gift and she wants to marry a prince. And so Lucinda brings her a frog prince, and Hattie's like, of the same species. And so then she is turned into a frog. There's also extended scenes, which are slightly longer versions of scenes, which the deleted scenes were already kind of that. So the extended scenes are so small as to be basically meaningless. There's also one of those DVD remote games called Prince Char's Fan Club. You're playing as Prince Char trying to escape the fan club, and you have to get from one side of the board to the other. It shows you the tiles where the fan club is hiding, and you have to avoid those tiles and use your DVD remote to move Char across the board. Also, on the menu of this game, if you click on Char's face, it takes you to an Easter egg where there's a bunch of hidden faces in the movie, and it shows you where these hidden faces are. The Magical World of Ella Enchanted, which is a half-an-hour behind-the-scenes documentary. My favorite element of this is that it has Anne Hathaway and Hugh Dancy in these painfully 2004 outfits, and they sort of like transition into whatever the next segment is. There's also the Ella Enchanted Red Carpet Premiere Special, which reuses tons of stuff from the behind-the-scenes doc, but also features Cary Kimmel and Jesse McCartney interviewing people on the premiere red carpet. Cary Kimmel did a song for the movie, and Jesse McCartney did a duet of Don't Go Breaking My Heart with Anne Hathaway for the soundtrack.
My little sister loved Princess Diaries, and she's a huge Anne fan. But I didn't know she could sing. I had no idea. But she was great. She sounded awesome.
Shout out to the outfit that Anne Hathaway wore to the premiere. It is a tank top dress over light wash jeans. There is a music video for the song It's Not Just Make Believe by Cary Kimmel. And finally, there is Happily Ever After Create Your Own Story. This is a DVD ROM feature, which I couldn't get to work. But DVD bonus features are so cool. Can we bring that back? They were all so much fun. And then another thing for this movie is they did dolls. They did dolls with the company Tonner, which I think of them as doing collector dolls for older people. No offense to Tonner or people who collect them. But I guess they also did a lot of licensed dolls. And so they did some Ella Enchanted dolls. These are 14-inch dolls, which is doll. Dolls are usually like 11 inches, so these would be towering over your Barbies. There is the default doll, who is wearing the traveling outfit, which is my outfit. There's also the happy ending doll, who's like the wedding outfit doll. And then they did fashion packs. Peachy Princess, Lavender Lady, and Golden Gal, which is weird, because those are not outfits she wears in the movie. I think because she always is wearing like blue and white and like very similar outfits, they didn't want to do any of her other outfits because they're too similar to her traveling outfit. I would have maybe done her debate class outfit. That's kind of different. Her ball gown would look kind of similar to her wedding dress. So I would have done the ball gown, and then I would have done, she has like a tearaway wedding dress for the dance number. So I would have done the shorter tearaway dress with the little go-go boots. But I think maybe they just wanted outfits in different colors. There is a review of this doll on the blog Toybox Philosopher, which shows that the doll comes with a book accessory, and instead of having Benny the book's face, it has the male Tonner doll's face. So like as though you put Ken on the cover of the book. Stating the obvious, this doll doesn't look like Anne Hathaway, like at all. In fact, I think it looks kind of bad. But I'm not really into the Tonner doll faces, so I don't know. You can get them online, like secondhand, and it seems crazy to me that there's a doll for a thing I like and I'm not getting it, but I'm not like a completionist collector in that way. Like if I don't like it, I'm not like, I have to have it just because it's a thing I like. Then this was funny. There is apparently an Ella Enchanted stage show. It is based on the book, not based on the movie, and it was co-commissioned by First Stage Milwaukee and Maryland's Adventure Theater MTC. It first premiered in 2016 with director John McClay. Music is by Deborah Wicks LaPuma, and book and lyrics is by Karen Zacharias. And it won the 2018 Helen Hayes Award for Outstanding Musical Adaptation. There are several clips of this online from different productions. Apparently, it is quite difficult to license this show. I learned a little bit about theater rights when I talked about the Descendants stage show. Usually it's pretty straightforward. You request a license from a catalog like Musical Theater International or MTI. They're like the big one. You pay a fee and they give you a lot of materials to work with, like the script and the musical arrangements and like whatever else. I don't know. For the Ella Enchanted musical, you have to contact a specific person and then like wait for approval. I researched this and I found a helpful Reddit post where one of the comments said that there's kind of weird rights stuff going on. It's not published in any catalog like MTI because there's rights problems because the movie studio still has the book rights and they want to like approve what other adaptations happen or something. So you have to request the license, but generally people get approved. So that's why it's kind of niche and isn't widely performed. Great information. I was going to jokingly say, like, thank you to this Reddit user. And I was going to look up their Reddit username to be like, what's their silly little username? But the username was Chris LaPuma. And I was like, isn't the music for this show by Deborah Wicks LaPuma? So I did some snooping, and this is her husband. And then my friend was like, can you click on his profile and see what else he's commented on? Yes. A lot of what he comments is just about his wife's plays. So there will be a post on the theater subreddit and someone will ask like, what show should I put on with my community theater? It's for this age range and like this many people. And then Chris LaPuma will come in and be like, well, what about this play by my wife? He doesn't say that it's by his wife, but that is what's happening. Ladies, if he wanted to, he would. Find a man who will recommend your plays in random Reddit comments. If any of you go and bother this nice man, I will put a raccoon through your window. Leave him and his wife alone. But I think that they should really get the right stuff squared away, because I think Chris and I agree. This could be a widely performed kids musical if it wasn't so inconvenient. At this point, whenever I'm working on a video, I always just Google, like, topic of video stage show. And I always find something. As for Miss Gail Carson Levine's ongoing career, she's written quite a few books, and a number of them have been fairy tale retellings, some of which are even set in the world of Ella Enchanted. Her book Fairest from 2006 is based on Snow White, and it is set in Aortha, where Ella's friend Arita comes from, and Snow White is Arita's adopted sister. And there's also Ogre Enchanted from 2018. This is based on Beauty and the Beast, and features Lucinda and Ella's father. So the world of Ella Enchanted lives on. That's all I've got for you today. If you liked this video, you can subscribe. I'm Sarah Seraph on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Tumblr. I've been posting a lot of short form content that's more casual, so you can check that out. And I also got a P.O. box, so if you want, you can send me things in the mail. And I don't know how to end a YouTube video. So, bye!